Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Seamless Scaling. And today I am super excited to welcome Karmen Kendrick of Karmen Kendrick Creative. And we're going to be talking about so much awesomeness around membership sites. So welcome, Karmen. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited about this chat.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about you is that you are a lover of WordPress. And I want to hear a little bit about how you came into this world, kind of like what your origin story is, and
Okay.
what brought you to doing this kind of work in the
Okay.
WordPress and membership space.
Yeah, so I'll try to make this as short as possible. But I like to kind of give the whole timeline. So back in 2012, I decided to start this e-commerce store selling beauty products online. And I actually started off on, well, no, it was Wix at the time. Then I moved over to Shopify. It's funny because Wix is so much more advanced now, but at the time with e-commerce, it didn't really have any back-end features like sending out your tracking numbers or just really your inventory management or anything like that. So I had this company make this really beautiful Wix site, and I just had to like get rid of it because I'm just like, it's beautiful, but it's not functional. I think we all kind of run into that even now sometimes. And then I went over to Shopify. So Shopify was cool, except that I didn't have a lot of money to invest in like making it look nice, but the back end worked perfectly, which was really my main concern at the time. And I made it work. It was ugly. I'm surprised anybody even bought anything from me at that time just because of the way that it looked. But they did. Ran into a financial snag, and then Shopify was no longer affordable for me. So I kind of drifted around different e-commerce plugins or e-commerce websites, and then I found WordPress. No idea how I stumbled upon it. I just remember I went to GoDaddy. I bought a theme from like Theme Forest or something, and then I bought like the hosting from GoDaddy, and I didn't touch it for like maybe like 5 or 6 months. Then I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna take a deep dive, and I got really good at like tweaking things. And it's kind of crazy because I thought that WordPress is pretty easy compared to people's like, oh, WordPress is so complicated. But I got really comfortable with making updates to my site. And I got this idea. I was like, maybe I can help other people make websites. So I got my first client, and then I realized that it's a lot more than making a website. Like you actually have to have like processes, project management skills, a lot of other things. So I took some time off, and I got really deep into just learning how to run an actual web design business and how to run a business in general, especially an online business, from actually doing the work, marketing, admin, because as a freelancer, solopreneur, like you are everybody in your business. And then from that point, I started to see, okay, I was like, I can't just offer just websites. I have to figure out, like what is my niche? Like who am I going to serve? Because I started seeing all these different articles. People were saying you need to find a niche. It's so much easier once you find a niche. And I was racking my brain. I was like, what could I do? What could I do? No experience whatsoever. But I was like, let me jump in the LMS, which is learning management systems, and the membership space. And I decided to give it a shot. Got some clients that allowed me to work on their sites, even though I didn't really have a lot of experience with it. And it kind of just went from there. So that is how from 2012 to 2021, I'm currently here. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, it's interesting how it kind of comes full circle in a way, right? Because you started off trying to figure things out. And then, when you started as a freelance slash agency business, then you had to learn new stuff. And then it kind of helped that you had done other things before to kind of sell your own products. So I love that you shared that story. And so
Yeah.
what was it that told you to go in the LMS and membership space? Was that just kind of your observation, or you knew people needed more help there?
Yeah, so this was a little bit before COVID, and the effects of that, because a lot of things went online, especially with online learning. But I think I did like a Google search, and I was just trying to see which industries actually paid, because as a freelancer, you'll get clients, and you like the ones like you enjoy working with. At the same time, you want ones that actually need you. And so I saw that online education was like one of the biggest spaces, and it continues to grow every year. So I was like, well, let me focus on that. And of course, with COVID-19, a lot of people were, focused on building online communities and having their own space outside of Facebook. They wanted their own hosted spaces. So that's what kind of helped me make that decision a little bit easier. And it's always scary when you make that decision to niche down, especially when you don't have a lot of experience in it. But it's just like, just go forward. And that's what I did.
That's awesome. And so, we talked about kind of your evolution with Wix and Shopify and WordPress. What is it about WordPress that made you say, yes, I love this. I'm going to build my business around WordPress and I want to keep supporting people with WordPress? Like what, and kind of how do you see the WordPress going forward in the next couple of years, maybe?
So WordPress to me, it had everything I needed. Like it wasn't to me, I don't know, maybe I'm just a technical person that hard or something. But to me, it wasn't too difficult. Like when I made that site on WordPress, the e-commerce store, it was the first time I had actually made a website and it looked great, to the users. And also I could manage it on the back end. I was using WooCommerce, of course. And so that's what made me just be like, okay, WordPress, it's pretty cool. Then I started to learn about how flexible it was. Because I wanted to add like, bookings and like subscriptions and things to it. And then of course, to me, it's so many WordPress resources online and you start reading all these things. I'm just like, oh, wow, WordPress is amazing. And to me, I hadn't like really ran into anything that really offers it all in one. I think like Kajabi, of course, it offers it all in one, but it's not like WordPress because you really get to put everything in there, anything that you want. And as far as like the WordPress space from years to come, I just feel like there's so much more that's to be done. I don't feel like it's, some people say, oh, WordPress is dying, no one uses WordPress, and that's so not true. I believe there was a new like online food ordering app. It's called Orderable. I forgot who makes. I don't know if it's. I don't even want to say who makes it. I don't want to be wrong on that. But it's like you can even make an online food ordering system on your WordPress site. I mean, that's amazing. And I see that you have your competitors like Webflow, they're like coming up. And I think Webflow is great. I just don't have the time to like learn it. But at the same time, like WordPress, it continues to grow and people are doing so many different things too. The community is awesome. And I just cannot find that or haven't seen that anywhere else outside of the WordPress space.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny because I feel like people are like, yeah, like WordPress, it's so over. There's new things, but WordPress powers over 40% of the web, right? So if
And it's
it's
growing.
powering
It's
that
growing.
many websites, there's a reason, right? So
Yeah, and that number just keeps growing. I remember, I think in 2015, it was around like maybe 30 odd percent or whatever, and it just keeps growing. I'm like, okay, so we're about to be half, of the web. So that's amazing. I haven't seen any stats from other competitors outside of WordPress, but that is amazing.
yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that. All right. So one of the things that you're a genius at is branding and positioning. And I would love to hear your perspective on, branding, especially for memberships or online learning and kind of those types of businesses. How can they brand in a way that attracts their people, maybe makes them separate from the competition a little bit? I know you've done that a lot of work around that with your clients. So what are your recommendations there?
Yeah, so definitely like niching down. I mean, it's okay to be like in a space and find community in it. Like for example, web designers. I'm in a space where I know a lot of women web designers, and they cater to other women web designers. However, not web designers, but women in business, I should say. And so, but that's not really. It's a differentiating factor. Can never get that word out, but it's not enough. And so you have to go deeper. So it's like, you know what? I want to work with women coaches that focus on, I don't know, like health and whole body, holistic things and things like this. So just going really deep in your niche and just figuring out what are they looking for, like what's the actual goal of this. Because a lot of times as creators, we'll get like just stuck in, oh, I want to offer this and I want to offer that. But like just take a step back and just look at, okay, what do they actually need? What is their goal coming into this? And so that will help you so much. Because like when people, I think we hear this all the time, when you can go somewhere or you see a product and it speaks directly to what you need, what you're looking for, it's an easy buy. I have no reason not to buy it. But when it's, oh, this helps this person, it helps that person, like, no, talk to me, talk to my need. And so sometimes we feel like we can get like a bigger market share by speaking to everybody and trying to capture everyone, but just you're going to find enough people that have this problem and stay in this space. So it's scary. Like I said, niche down is always scary. But it helps you so much, further along and you grow faster, because I've made that mistake too. And having to go back and say, okay, like, wait, who's this really helping and what problem am I really solving for them? So taking a step back and figure out what the problems that you're solving and the goals you're helping them to achieve is like the biggest thing when it comes down to branding and positioning yourself. Branding and positioning yourself as a membership or like a learning site.
That's brilliant. I think a lot of people are afraid of doing that because they don't want to
Yes.
be pigeonholed. But one thing that I've definitely found too is like if you're super clear about who you work with or what it is that you're solving, then people can recommend you because they're like, oh, you need someone who's good at this. I know someone who does that. Here, this is the person you need to go and get in touch with.
Yes.
So
And
it,
everything in life is that exact way when it comes down to the doctors. If
yeah.
you have, no, God forbid you have heart problems, but you don't want to go to like your primary doctor, just a general surgeon. Like you want to work with Christina Yang from Grey's Anatomy, if you get that reference. But you want to work with a specialist. And I mean, that's how everything else is in life. And so you have to think about your membership or your learning management site the same exact way.
I love that. All right. And then also, are there any trends that you're seeing, especially around like design or online learning that makes things easier for people to maybe complete courses, or maybe it's UX, UI, user experience design or anything like that that you're seeing that you kind of had with experience with your clients, for example, or maybe that they're
Yes.
asking for?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is also, so one part of this is okay, we want to, as a course creator, like I want to build a course and, of course I want to, because maybe you're a service provider and I think a lot of people get here where you're providing services and you're like, this isn't sustainable for me to do this. You have slow periods. And so you want to get in a course and you can make some money and monetize your knowledge. And then you get the course and then people are signing up, but they're not completing it. And so, it feels good to, get that money, but I'm like, I'm not really solving a problem because they're not completing my course. So finding ways to actually keep people engaged through automations, for example, like with your CRM, tagging them. Okay, this person they started module one, but it's been a few days or it's been a few weeks and they haven't done module two. So finding ways to keep them engaged. And so I think that we've gotten to this course space. I guess we know we can make money from it, but actually getting people to the finish line and getting success stories from them by using automations and CRM. So I think that's the biggest or the next thing I'm seeing is starting to trending with courses and really get more involved in and not just saying, oh, I have a course, but people are actually completing my course and they're getting results from it.
Yeah, that's something that we've always like really been big on at AccessAlly too, because yeah, it's like it's great if they sign up, but if they don't get the promised result because they didn't actually log in more than once, right? Then it's not going to be a good customer experience and they're not going to recommend, they're not going to come back for more. So yeah, I think that's a really big trend for sure. So one thing that I saw when I was reading your website is that you kind of have like a counterintuitive approach to investing in this type of work, right? So when somebody's like, okay, I want to build a website or I want to hire a team or somebody to build my course or my membership, there's a lot that goes into that pricing and like making that decision. So how can you kind of coach people who might be listening and who are thinking of investing in an agency or somebody to help them do this work so that they get the most out of the money that they're investing, but also maybe like make the right investment, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so having, I think, an open mind when it comes to pricing, because it's just, you know, I would say it's anything it's a service. And so there's not a set price. Like you can, like even when maybe getting your car fixed, you can go to one place and it's $500 and you go over here and it's like $1,000. So just having an open mind when it comes down to pricing, and you're looking for a specialist. You're not looking for somebody that builds membership sites and then they build e-commerce, or maybe they do that. Some agencies, they're really large, but a lot of times you are working with freelancers. And so you don't want a freelancer that's working on, all these different type of projects, because I mean, it's too many moving pieces, especially like with all these different technologies. And so like it's way too much for one person to try to keep track of. And so you want to definitely look for somebody that's specializing. If you are working with an agency, I would definitely ask those questions like, hey, let me actually see examples of like memberships you've built, or learning management sites you've built, and like, where were the person when they came in? Did they already have an existing system? What did you do to actually improve it? Look for case studies. I really feel like I didn't really think about case studies even as a designer, offering them and showing those to my clients, but it makes a big difference because it can tell you like, hey, this is where they were at, and this is where, by working with them, that's where it took them, as far as or whatever their goals were at that point. And then also just thinking about, okay, how much money am I making from this? Because sometimes you don't think about that as well. Or how long is it going to take for me to get to X amount of dollars, if that makes sense. So I don't know, maybe you're projecting you're going to make $100,000 with your membership site or your learning management site. And you can say, okay, well, maybe a 10% or a $10,000 investment, that makes sense. But if you're just saying like, oh, $10,000, that's way too much money, then you also have to just look at it as like, is this relative to what I'm going to make from it? And it makes sense every single time. And if you don't want to spend or invest 10 to get 100,000, and just do it yourself, get on Kajabi or something and try to figure it out. But that's the way I like to tell people to think about and approach it.
That's super insightful. And we have a question from Nicole, and she's asking any suggestions for freelance WordPress developers to set pricing. So I guess kind of recommendations around helping people set prices if they are an agency or a developer.
Yeah, so I think that you should definitely look around and see what the competition has going on, but don't base your pricing on that, because that person, they may have a family. Maybe you don't have a family, but you definitely have to consider all of those costs when you go into it, and what it's going to take. And then, of course, you got to think about all the things that can possibly go wrong. Things are going to take longer than normal when you have your projects. But I would say for this type of work, membership sites and learning management sites, I mean, $10,000. I mean, right now in 2021, November 2021, that's a good starting price. But I mean, it could, just depending on how much they want going into their site, it can definitely be more. Now, what I would recommend before I would just put packages out there, because for these type of sites, I don't like packages, and it does take more work. But I would say if you can offer like some kind of paid discovery call, where maybe you sit on the phone with them for like an hour and just really flesh out everything that their site needs. And that way you're getting paid for your time. And even when you put that plan together, even if they decide to not go with you, because I like that idea as well. And that's a great way to tell, like, hey, even if you don't go with me, you at least know this is what you need to actually get this site built out. So I would always recommend doing some kind of paid discovery call. Maybe just if you want to do something that's free, you can do like maybe a 15-minute good fit call just to see if they have, something you're willing to even work with. If your values align with what they're trying to build. And then that's when you can introduce like, hey, this is the next step, which is a paid discovery call. We can just really flesh out what this site needs. But if they're coming to you, I would definitely say 10,000, like I said, it's a minimum. But you can just go from there depending on what they need. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, totally. And I would say also with that is thinking about, your time, and then the time that you don't think that you're charging for, because I feel like there's so much other stuff around the work that's not necessarily like billable client work or, like delivering on a project, but, marketing yourself, doing your taxes, like there's all this admin stuff that you usually have to do that you don't account for when you're pricing things. So I think just thinking about like, okay, this is actually a business, and I have these other things I still have to do even if I have client work to do. So not that your clients are paying you for that, but just also making sure you're covering all your bases in that.
Yeah, every business I think has that kind of built into their pricing. I was just telling my boyfriend this other day, because he always complained about this restaurant. It automatically adds gratuity to your bill, and I was like, whether that you see it on your bill or not, they're whatever in their food costs, they're charging you like whatever it costs to keep this place operational. So you have to think about that, because in freelancer world, businesses, you have slow periods. And so are you charging enough money where you can make it, I don't know, through the summer months when things start getting slow, or in December when things kind of like slow down? So you have to think about all of those things.
Awesome. So you also mentioned, pricing, or if somebody is going to be hiring someone to build their site, thinking about like how much do I plan to make, and how much of a percentage should I be investing? How do you feel like? Do you think people should start off doing it themselves? Should hire, out of the gate? It depends on obviously where they're at in their business. But let's say they have a successful offline company and then they want to bring it online, or if they're starting from scratch and they don't have anything, would you recommend that they spring that money? Or, I think it's a hard decision sometimes for people. Like they want to invest and they think maybe if I have a flashy website, kind of like what you said in your story in the beginning, maybe it'll help me get there faster. But I have also seen it like go both ways. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, so if you don't really have the money to invest, and if you have to kind of like rob Peter to pay Paul, sometimes you can take a risk, but I never advocate to that. If you're just a risk-taking person, that's definitely something you can do. I'm one of those people where I will take a risk. But however, when it comes down to like making your investment, it's just like, do I have the money to invest in this? And you can always start small. There are so many different ways to offer some type of online course or membership. Like even if you take your email marketing system and you just want to test the waters out, um, MailChimp is probably not my favorite because to me it's just way too complex what's going on. But someone like, or a company like ConvertKit, you can offer like an email course that kind of goes out. And you can test the waters, maybe get like, get some money coming in. So I would say if you can, if you don't have a lot of money, start small. Or even if you do have the money, sometimes you still want to start small because, it's still, you have an idea, it sounds great. People are like, yeah, I would definitely pay for that. But you don't want to, overinvest in it as well. So starting small, just seeing where that goes, I would say just depending on, whatever, maybe like 3 to 6 months you want to see. And then like, hey, I definitely know this is an investment that's worth making and go from there. So I'll just say just scratch that, whether you have the money or you don't have the money, just start small and see where that goes if you do want to make that larger investment in the future.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like having that test product or like the proof that it's going to work before you invest a whole lot behind it, I think is a really smart way to go. And I love the email course. That's actually how I launched a lot of my first courses before like
Yeah,
everything, came together. And that was many years ago. So it was much easier to do an email course than a full-fledged course. So that's awesome.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so much goodness here. So, one of the things that happened recently is you decided to join the LearnDash team. So, I congratulations on that. And
Thank
I would
you.
love to hear kind of what your decision-making process was like. And, is that something that you think a lot of freelancers are looking to do? Or, any advice for people who are kind of in that space of like, okay, like, how do I decide on these like career decisions essentially?
Yeah, so the mindset that I had about freelancing and entrepreneurship in my early 20s is a lot different than me about to, because I'm turning 30 next month. And so it's just a lot different now because now I'm thinking about family and getting ready for that next step of life. And it just really depends on, I guess, how you build your company. I made a lot of mistakes. And so I probably could be so much further along if I had a mentor and had help and I could have had like all this money put away. So it really just depends on how you start your journey. But at this point in my life, I do feel like, having employment, full-time employment, even though like just 2 years ago, I quit my full-time job and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then now I'm just like, okay, I have to, I want a family and I want like really good health insurance. And I also want to be doing something that I love at the same time. So this opportunity with LearnDash, like it was, amazing because I'm just like, okay, I'm already in this space. It's on brand for me. I can still work on side projects, and that makes sense for me. But it really just depends on if you have help. I think like sometimes if you have a partner or you're married, that definitely helps because you already have somebody that has like those full-time work benefits. So it really just depends on, what you are looking at. But I think you should always think about your future. Like, where do I want to be 10 years from now? And is what I'm doing, is that going to help me or is it going to hurt me in the long term? I don't know if I would want to maybe do full-time freelancing again. I'm just kind of like, I hate to say this, I'm kind of like over the client work at this point. And I think everybody kind of gets to that and you pivot and you do an online course or you offer coaching or like you offer a framework or a program. And so I think it just kind of has this progression and it's supposed to be that way. It's like a cycle because you have more people that's coming up and then they're going to have their turn. And so it's always going to be somebody that's out there that's offering it. You just kind of just go to the next level of it. So I would not be ashamed or afraid to take on full-time employment, especially when you've been putting yourself out there. And I think one of the things that I've done really great these last couple of years is because I chose WordPress to be my niche, and then I niched out even further and said, hey, I'm only on membership sites and LMS sites. And that really just put me in position to meet some really great people in the WordPress space and Twitter. I mean, Twitter is like just amazing. Actually, I found out about this opportunity through Twitter. And so I just feel like it's just an amazing thing if you just build yourself up online and network with people. because I just hear all these stories about people do like 8 and 10 rounds of interviews just to find out they didn't get the job. And I'm like, it's important to have the knowledge, but you also got to have relationships. I have a business coach, shout out to him, Ryan Cox. He's amazing. And from the very first day I met him, he's always been big about relationships. And that's what I believe in as well. You have to build relationships. So if you are a freelancer, you're thinking about, going, full time, or, maybe that is a part of your plan in the future, start building relationships with, in places where with people you want to be. And don't be all, all trying to be fake or anything about it. Just, genuinely just, start, building relationships with people. So.
Oh, I love it. I think it like, to me, it looked like it happened very organically and just very naturally. And also congrats on like next steps in life, I think, and, happy early birthday. I think that's always an exciting phase of life. And, we have 2 young kids, and I totally get the extra stability that really helps with, starting a family and all that. So I totally think that's a super smart move on your part. And also, the team at LearnDash and Chris Lemma, and, they're super smart and awesome people. So I feel like you landed in a great place.
Yes,
so
I feel like it.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing, you mentioned about kind of burning out a little bit on client work and always having like the next generation coming up in that. So I think I've been there too. I started out doing web design client stuff in 2010-ish at this point. And so, yeah, I've totally been there. But I think one kind of benefit of doing client work is that you see things that are kind of up close and personal, right? So like you're seeing inside of other people's businesses. So is there any kind of advice or trends that you're seeing that you've worked on client sites on that you think maybe like lessons learned that you could pass on to people who maybe are just doing this for the first time, or they're like getting ready to launch, but things have changed? Anything like that, kind of like from the front lines that you could share?
Okay, and as like maybe business owners, or like maybe just like the web designers, or both? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think for business owners, but also for like the freelancers and the people doing the work, I think both are super helpful.
Okay, so I will definitely say whatever date that you thought that you were going to launch on, please add padding to that by a couple of months. I mean, you just never know, different things happen. So, and as a business owner, as a web designer or a freelancer, don't be afraid to tell your clients like, hey, this is a 12-week project, this is a 16-week project. And then as a business owner, a lot of times you go to these people, they're working, they're not just like twiddling the thumbs, they have like other projects going on. So when you go to them with like realistic timelines. So I would say to anyone, even if they say they can do your site in 1 month, I would say still look at least 3 months to get this site built out. So that's definitely a big thing, like being realistic about your timeline and also adding additional padding to that. And so just also planning for it, because you're going to go around and talk with different people, and you're going to be like, okay, this person is saying they charge this much, and they charge that amount of money. So just be, maybe take a quarter just prepping yourself for all these different things that you're going to be thinking. And you're not going to, of course, know everything. But when it comes down to timeline and money, those are like the biggest things when it comes to anything. So having that mapped out.
I kind of want to say, like, from your lips to like everyone's ears, please, everywhere. Like that is super, actionable. And like, I feel like we've all been there where we think, oh yeah, that'll be easy. I think the thing that I heard the most, and I don't know if it's still common, is, I just want a simple site. But then what simple means to them and what actually simple is a very different thing. So yeah.
It does not exist, especially when it comes down to, because it's not just the course itself, it's the branding, how it looks, how it feels to other people. And when they get on the back end, and what does that look like? And, if they log in, where are they going, where they log in? So there are so many pieces to it. And so that's why for designers and also people that are looking to build like their own course site, just really sitting down and having a mapping session where like you're thinking about all these things, like what's happening, like drawing it out on a piece of paper, using some kind of funnel or something software, and seeing where all the pieces are falling at, because there's just so many things you don't really think about that's important, like the emails that they're going to get once they sign up, and different things. So it's just a lot that goes into it that you have to be mindful of.
And this is more of like a very tactical question from how you tend to work with your clients. But one of the things that I think stops a lot of people from launching a course or a program is that they might not have all their content ready yet when they're getting ready and working on their site for it. So do you wait for people to have all their content ready before you start building their sites? Or do you say like, we'll get it ready and then we'll have placeholders. And then when you're ready, you can like start selling and then start like putting your content in as you go along? Because I think the content and perfectionism side of that can kind of stop people from finishing sometimes.
Yeah, I would say as a course creator, go ahead and create your content like that. That's the most important thing because you can use any medium. Because we talked about email courses earlier, that you can use any medium to sell that course. So work on your content. Think about or invest in a copywriter. I always recommend, even if you can't afford a web designer, at least you will have copy that makes sense. And you got to think about all those little pages, like those little reactions that come up, like, and maybe you have a chat bot that comes up in your course. Like, do you have any questions? Like little things like that. So definitely working with a copywriter if you can, but always content first, because what we don't realize is that we design the page to based on the content and not the other way around. Because when you design something, it's kind of like you're just plugging it in. It doesn't always fit. And so when I have the content, I can say, okay, this is what we're trying to highlight. So let's actually make this, appear over here versus the other way around. So content is first. Web designers, developers, if you can, always try to get content first. And even if you can maybe offer it a part of your package, or a part of it, like, it's mandatory that I have all my clients work with the copywriter, because if you don't, it's just too much on you. Like, because you're trying to promote and you're trying to market, and then, I'm telling you, hey, you got to write this about page. And then you just kind of hand me something. It's just like, no, that's not going to work out. So content first.
I love the advice of hiring a copywriter too, because yeah, I think it is like a lot of times people don't realize like an online business is a content and written business, even if there is video or other type of content, like there's written words or words that are spoken, pretty much everywhere in that business. So I think that's super brilliant. And do you usually recommend copywriters for your clients, or how do you kind of recommend they find that person that will help them with those words?
Yeah, and this goes back to relationships. And so if you are any type of freelancer or developer designer, you should definitely be making friends with copywriters, so you can have them. And then copywriters, they can also refer business back to you as well. So I refer copywriters to my clients. And if I ever get back into the space of just offering design services, and I'm thinking about maybe working on just membership sales pages or something like that, I would definitely include the copywriter in the process, but definitely try to find somebody that understands, the kind of clients you serve, and write for them, get some examples out there and just show like, hey, this is the difference.
I love that. So yeah, I think it is so true about the relationships. And I think if people come to you, having someone that you can recommend that you trust, that you've worked with before, or other people have had good experiences with, makes a big difference. So that's
It
awesome.
does, it does.
Yeah. So I think, the topic of this call was like how to have a membership site with unlimited growth potential. So what are some of the things that you think are really important to set up that kind of unlimited growth potential for people's sites?
Yeah, so definitely having the right infrastructure for it, and your email list, that is going to be, one of your biggest selling points. Having a presence on social media, these are all things that we hear before. But sometimes as a solo practitioner, we want to be on all the different networks, but you really have to focus on like, where do I get the most out of everything? For me, that's Twitter, but other people, they have a lot of success on TikTok and Instagram Reels and different things. So I wouldn't say just neglect those other platforms, but wherever you're having success at, really honing in on those platforms. And of course, use those platforms to build your email list, because those people that are going to, that you can talk to and, get them to, become a part of your membership or take your online course, most likely they're going to be on your email list, and that relationship most likely started on social media. So that's one of the biggest things for building. For I guess building a site with unlimited growth potential. And then outside of that, you also want to focus on, like I said at the very beginning, on the goals of what your people, what they want, and not just adding like features. Because sometimes you say, hey, we want to create a mobile app, and maybe that's just a feature. It's not really something that's solving a major problem for me. It's just something that's nice to have. And so when it comes down to that, like you're definitely going to get features from your goals, but it's best to start with the goals and not just having features that you're just trying to throw on there and make it just seem like, oh, it's really worth the $39.99 per month that I'm selling this for. So that's the biggest thing, like the goals. And that's what sells your membership to more people because, word of mouth marketing, that's always going to be really big. People trust other people that they trust, say that they use, and it's always kind of going to go from there. Having a community, community is exceptional to this whole process where people can just talk. And I know that sometimes we have like people are always trying to decide, should I have a free community beforehand? Should I have like a paid community? And I always recommend like having maybe some kind of free community as well where people can talk in the Facebook groups. I know sometimes we hate Facebook, but the thing is, I read a really interesting thing. I'm in a Facebook group and they said, is it that your clients, do they hate Facebook or your customers or whatever, your members, they hate Facebook, or is it just that they don't want to download another app? And for a lot of people, they already kind of use Facebook. It's easy just to get in a group on there. Versus maybe downloading something like a Mighty Networks or like a Circle or some of the ones that I hear that's out there. So definitely community, your email list, and I think I made one of the point. And thinking about their overall goals of the people that you're serving, is going to give you the unlimited growth potential.
So much genius there. I love that. And I like what you mentioned about, the mobile app. It sounds really like sexy and awesome. And like, I need to offer this, it'll be like setting me apart. But like you said, maybe they're already on Facebook or they're already using something and they don't want necessarily that extra part of that. And I think a lot of times too, when people are marketing their membership, they'll say, 2 calls per month, or, they kind of list out like the ingredients of their membership, but they don't really focus, like what you were saying, on the actual solution or like problem that they're solving or like outcome that people can expect from being a member. So I think that's always a good reminder too, is like, it's not just about like, you get a group and you get calls and you get videos and you get like, it's like, no, like what's the actual transformation that people could experience from being part of it. So
exactly. Awesome. And you have to focus on that part. The transformation is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. I love it. All right. So tell us more where people can find you. Obviously, Twitter, what's next? I know you have so much like awesomeness going on. So just kind of tell people a little bit more about you and where we can find you.
Yeah, so Twitter is my main place online. It's twitter.com/I am Karmen K, and that's Karmen spelled with the K, of course. And then my next thing is the Tips and Tacos community. This is kind of new for me. I started it back in April of this year, and it's a newsletter. It's a premium newsletter actually, and I send out just a roundup of different tips and different things I found, like in the marketing, business, and also the productivity space, because I'm always big on working smarter and not harder. So I'm always, suggesting different tips I'm finding, and also give out free tacos every Tuesday. So I'm in the process of growing that community, and it's a membership as well, which is very on brand. I'm also working on a course. Well, I want to work on a huge WordPress course site, and thinking maybe even other people can submit their WordPress courses to it. So that's definitely on the books. I want to create some templates. I feel like some of the hardest thing with courses that you have your content. Maybe you don't have the money to hire a designer, but I don't really find a lot of ready-made membership or online course sites kind of like just ready to go with everything that's in there, whether it's a LearnDash, ready to go, or AccessAlly. And I would love to be able to like take maybe some of the biggest course platforms and kind of like have a template version for all of those. But definitely staying in this space and just growing and just seeing where everything goes from there. But if you want to find me, Tips and Tacos, or at Tips and Tacos on Twitter, and also at I am Karmen K on Twitter as well.
Oh, I love that. And I love, how you put your personality into it so much. And like with, you actually give away tacos. Like that is so cool.
Yes. Yes,
oh,
I
so
love
cool.
it.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah, so thank you. And I also love the idea of the templates. That's something that, we think about a lot too. It's like design really matters. And I think you're amazing at design. And, obviously you're amazing at a lot of things, but I feel like that's one of the things that stands out when you go to your website. Like it's super professional. It looks really well put together. And I think people want that for their online courses. And yeah, you could learn to design stuff or hire someone, but that kind of in between is I think a really nice this spot that people are looking for. So that's brilliant.
Right. Of course.
Awesome. Any parting words or any kind of words of advice for either freelancers, agencies, or people who are really getting into this space more seriously?
Yeah, so there is a pinned tweet on my Twitter. And I think it has like maybe 60,000 likes and retweets and all this stuff. But it's really simple. It just says, launch the damn thing. You can make it perfect later. And that is like my parting words to everyone. Like, just do it, just put it out there, and it can always be improved upon.
Super wise words of advice. I love it. Thank you so much for being here with us, Karmen. The Seamless Scaling Show. This was such a pleasure. And yeah, I'm wishing you all the best and super excited to see all the cool creations that you're up to.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I will talk to everyone later.
See you later.
All right. We're no longer live.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, thank
That
you
went
so much.
seamless.